Hey y'all, it's your girl Sweet Mary K of Sweet Mary K Photography. Yes, I'm the beautiful face behind the sponsorship of the What's Your Geek segment on the Geeker Report podcast. I'm also one of Coach EV's daughters. I'm actually his favorite. Yeah, I know you've met Ellie and her twin sister with the British accent, but I'm the one you really need to know. But before I continue, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this podcast because today you're in for a treat. We have Coach Jeff Capel, and it's special to me because I met Coach Capel a couple of years ago at my favorite collegiate school, Duke University. Yes, I am a Duke fan. Man, Coach Capel's had me sitting in some of the best seats of versus the North Carolina Tar Heels. Y'all know. He had me at the back with Coach K. I was in his office. I got to eat. I got to see the practice gym. I got to see it all. And so I'm pretty excited about this episode. I know you're in for a treat. So without further ado, sit back, relax, and get your mind ready to receive this geek, 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 geek.
How you want it? Tell me how you want it. How you want it? Tell me how you want it. How you want it? Tell me how you want it. How you want it? Pick it your way.
Don't you know that you can get what you want, when you want, where you want, right here at Burger King? I'm down with the king.
Your way, right away, yay. Burger King now.
What's up, world? This is your boy, your guy, Coach EV, aka EV the Geeker, and welcome to another episode of the Geeker Report podcast brought to you by Tatum and Wade Law Firm, located at 124 East of Meat Street, right here in Jackson, Mississippi. Tatum and Wade's motto is serious lawyers who get serious results. My motto is, if you want to get paid, then you need to go to Tatum and Wade. Listen, I am as excited as I've been in a long time. I have a special guest here today that it's crazy, y'all. It's crazy. I mean, the guy has been everywhere. He was a superstar basketball player. He won a state championship in high school. He was nominated for an ESPY award when he went to the illustrious Duke University, where he started for 4 years after he hit a 40-foot shot. I mean, his face has been all over. He's coached in the USA national team. I don't know what he had done. He's been a head coach. He has been a winner wherever he has been. He was also the youngest head coach at one time in Division I history at 27 years of age. He comes from a phenomenal family of coaches and players. Man, Les, welcome. He is now the head coach of the University of Pittsburgh. Please welcome to the show none other than the great Jeff Capel III. What's up, Jeff?
Hey man, how you doing? I need to have you introduce me all the time.
Jeff, I'm just going to tell you the same thing that I've told everyone else that says that to me because they love my introductions, GOG. GOG means, Jeff, and I haven't taught you that, is get out of the geek. We are geeking. You're geeking me. I'm geeking you. I'm doing my job. So I'm going to tell you right from the beginning, GOG. But no, man, it's good to have you for real. And I'm just, I am excited. We've known each other over the years and seen each other out on the circuit. And I've always had mad respect for you. And you have done a phenomenal job. And it's good to have you here.
Well, I appreciate it, man. And, when I got the invitation to come, I jumped right at it. Obviously, you and I go back, and I'm honored to spend some time with you today.
That's great. Hey, listen, well, let's jump right in. I want to talk about, and I've been sharing this with all the previous head coaches and talking about this, and because right now this has been lingering more than we're in an epidemic or pandemic I'm a few years, I'm 51, and I know you're around the 45-year or 46-year range. So in my 51 years, there's nothing been like this before, where the world has stopped, basically. And so talk to us about how this thing that they're calling and we're calling COVID-19 has affected you guys, your family, Pittsburgh, and how it's affected. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's a very difficult, trying, confusing time, to be honest with you, in every aspect. Obviously, it's scary, with what's going on. I think as you get older, and this is something I'm sure I know it, and I didn't fully appreciate this until I started getting a little bit older, but just there's no price for health. And that is the most important thing, is your health. And when you have this kind of invisible monster that can wreak havoc on your health, your loved one's health, it's really scary. And especially when there doesn't seem to be an end in sight, a way to conquer it. And so, you mentioned everything is stopped. I wish everything would stop a little bit more, because maybe that would help. I think one of the things that we found as we're dealing with this, and we continue to find, is how important really good leadership is. And it's something we do not have in our country right now. And I think that's why we are in the position that we are in right now in August. Obviously, this started back in March, and the United States and the world, but especially here in the United States, it's been turned upside down. Pittsburgh is no different. We are like, a lot of these cities across the country where, it seemed like, we were going really well, and then all of a sudden there was a spike. I think the spike coincided with some of the student athletes coming back. We're at a point right now that I think is going to be really interesting and very critical, because we're bringing students back. Most schools will be starting up here in a couple of weeks. We start next week here at the University of Pittsburgh. We also have surrounding schools. You have Duquesne right down the street. You have Carnegie Mellon right around the corner. Robert Morris is here. All these schools are right here. And so it's going to be a lot of young people coming from all across the country. And so it's going to be really interesting what happens, I think, in the next few weeks here in the city of Pittsburgh, but really all around the country as students and schools start to open back up.
Yeah, you know what? It's very interesting, because it's unfortunate you can't put. You'd almost think it'd be great if you could put the players in a bubble like the NBA, and where everything would be confined, and maybe the students, would be able to do their stuff virtually, and just let the athletes come back. But then people are like, you got all this. Well, that's not fair. And again, you said something very key. It's very a confusing time, and it's a time of uncertainty. Along with COVID-19, as far as just keeping along that real quick, how has it been? Take us through when you guys, basically finishing the season, and you have a pretty one of your best seasons since you've been there in the 2 years. With the possibility, you may have gotten a chance to get to the NIT or CIT or something, maybe some type of postseason play. And then, you start talking about off-season workouts. How is that different? How has that affected what you've had to do?
Yeah, it's affected everything. I mean, we played the last game in the ACC tournament, and our last game we lost to NC State. And then the next day is when everything shut down. It was that night. We lost early afternoon to NC State. It was that night when everything happened with the Utah Jazz and Rudy Gobert. That's what ended the sports world right there, that incident right there. And the next day is when all the conference tournaments started shutting down, and they shut down the NCAA tournament and things like that. And when we got back, I mean, we were on spring break anyway. And by the time spring break was over with, in-person classes were done. And so once we got beat in the ACC tournament, our guys never went back to school in person. Everything was online. So that meant from March until July 20th, we, the coaches, were not able to do anything with our guys except speaking to them, text, phone, FaceTime, or on Zoom. And so it's been really interesting. When we started back up on July 20th, one of the things that, first of all, we were fortunate that we were able to do that. We have a protocol in place, and our guys have been healthy, knock on wood, and so we were able to do that. We have to do this in phases, and that's something I talked to my staff about. Obviously, we were really anxious to get with them and excited to get with them. But the main thing, EV, man, is their health and them getting in shape. When you go from March until July, some of our guys had access to gyms a little bit when they were at home, but not many. And if they did, it wasn't at the level that they would normally be working as far as conditioning, lifting, and even the basketball workouts. And so we had to be smart. You can't jump right back in and just go at it completely, because then I think you risk injury. And so we've tried to be really smart, because the other thing is that we don't know when our season's going to be. We don't know if it's going to start on time. We don't know if it's going to be pushed back. And so we're trying to gradually build up. The other thing, and this is something that I don't think people are talking about, and I think it's a travesty that we are not talking about this on a national scale more. And certainly what everyone is concerned about is playing, and are you going to be able to have a season? Obviously, we're dealing with the football stuff right now. But I think the mental health of these young people, I think that's something that we really need to be cognizant of, and doing everything we can to assist them with that. You and I'm 45, you're 51. We had our time. You think about when you went to college, or you graduated high school, or you're getting ready for your second year of college, or your last year, or things like that. And all those moments, these young people have not had those moments. They didn't graduate high school like we did. It was virtual. Them entering college is unlike anyone that's ever entered college. And so all of these things take a toll, not being able to work out, that's how young people cope, especially in our world, in the sports world. Not being able to do that. So I'm hopeful that, as we start back school, that the NCAA also gives us, the coaches, more access to our guys, because we are the ones usually that they go to help with this, to assist with this. And so when you say complicated, uncertain, trying, confusing, it's all of these things that these young people have been dealing with. And when you throw in the social justice stuff, it's been a lot on their plate.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think you're exactly right. We can say what we want. I think there was, I think Plies, I think he's a rapper. I'm not caught up with it, like I ain't into the that like that. But I think he says, he has on Twitter, he has a lot of motivational kind of talks. But I just heard him, I just happened to hear him recently talk about, we're the athletes are more than just athletes. And I agree with that to a certain degree, but then, and his point was, they could be doctors, they could be this, they could be that. Well, that's what they could be. There's no question they could have been, but now they're athletes. And what you're talking about, we can't deal with what they could have been. At this point, the mental health, what you're talking about, they're basketball players. That's what they are. They're student athletes. And we can go ahead and geek on the student athlete piece, but let's face it, I played college, you play college. These guys are, they're going to school because of basketball. A lot of them are. They wouldn't even be in school if it wasn't for basketball. So you're exactly right. When that is taken from them, it's like almost into a prison, a mental prison, where they've been sentenced, and it's almost like unfairly, because they didn't do anything in their mind, and so they've been sentenced to this COVID-19 almost death sentence. In a sense, if you want to look at it like that. So I agree with you. The mental piece needs to be talked about more.
Yeah, it does. And, the one thing that I will say, and this is something I've tried to do since I became a head coach when I was at VCU at 27 years old, I do want my players, and I think all athletes, I hate when they think of themselves, or if they think of themselves as just a basketball player or just a football player. And it's unfortunate because I was that way once. That's how I saw my worth. That's how I saw my value. And I think that's a very shallow way to think. This is something that we do, and it's something that we love, we have a passion for, but it's not all that we are. And so I totally understood what Plies was saying. There's so many people right now that want us athletes, especially the black athlete, to shut up and dribble, so to speak. They don't want us to have an original thought or to have an opinion or to share it, especially if it's something that goes against what they think. I think the other thing you're seeing right now, which has been beautiful to watch, is athletes are finding their voice more right now. They're really starting to understand that they do have more value than just, catching a football, shooting a basketball, hitting a baseball, acting their butt off in a movie or a play or singing a song or dancing. They're seeing them, especially the black athlete. And I think that's a really, really important thing right now. And so, I think the message that Plies was trying to do, and it's something that I feel passionately about. Like I said, I saw myself like that at one time. And, an interesting story, anyone that knows me, I'm an open book. And I share this stuff with my players all the time. When I was a freshman at Duke, we played for the national championship, and we lost in the finals to a great Arkansas team. And I'm a freshman, I'm starting. The Final Four is in Charlotte, North Carolina, so 2.5 hours from where I grew up. So it was like a fantasy come true. At that time, that was the 7th time in 9 years that Duke had been to a Final Four. And so as a freshman, I'm thinking we lost, it was brutal how we lost at the end, the Scotty Thurman 3. We'll get back there. About 3 weeks after that game, school was over with. And I did not do well second semester academically. I was one of these guys, EV, that I felt like, I'm starting, I'm playing my butt off. We got to the Final Four, and these people just going to take care of me. And it was stupid on my part. I stopped going to class. I didn't do the things that I was supposed to do. And I could have easily pointed fingers, but it was me. It was me being stupid. And I'm not a stupid guy. And I remember I had a meeting with someone at the university, an advisor, and they said something to me, man, that will always stick. And they said, maybe this is too hard for you. Maybe this university is too hard for you. Maybe, this is too much. And I've never been so offended in my life. And it made me think of something my dad taught me, as I was growing up. He used to always say, don't give people the bullets to shoot you. And that means don't give them a reason. And I did that because of my stupidity. And from that point on, I grew up in a family of educators. My dad was a coach, a high school coach at first, and he was a teacher, an athletic director. My mom was a teacher my whole life, and then later became an assistant principal. She's retired now. But that's where I started to see myself as more than just a basketball player. And it's been beautiful to watch these young people now and these athletes in the NBA, not afraid to take a stand, not afraid to speak up. And the thing that I've learned, especially when I started working with USA Basketball, these guys are really, really smart, man. I mean, really, really smart. And they may not have a degree, but they are as educated and as smart as a lot of people out there.
Wow, that's powerful. I just love when, you have the old sayings from your father, the old guys. He says, don't give them bullets to shoot you. And that's very powerful. That's a powerful thing to live by. And, I wish these kids would take that attitude that you took, that you should have been offended by them saying that.
Yeah.
Because first of all, subliminally, they were saying you shouldn't be here anyway. The only reason you're here is because you're an athlete. You wouldn't be here any other way. That's what, see, when people say stuff like that, you can just read so much into that. And so there has to be something that in your inside that burns you up like you did, and where you end up going on to show them, no, I do belong here. I am smart enough to be here. This ain't, just because it's Duke University, I could be here even if I wasn't a basketball player. And so
Absolutely.
that's
Absolutely.
powerful. That's the mindset that you have to have. And you're right, Plies definitely was basically his message. And I think that we have to take that message from a grassroots level and begin to teach our kids that at an earlier age, because everybody's not going to respond like Jeff Capel, who had two parents and a great father. And I think, and I'm not going to go down and chase that rabbit right now, but that's such a big key thing in our Black culture, the lack of a Black father. And you have that. You know what I will, Chase? Talk to us, because I like to go with the flow. We open that can of worms. We'll just go down there. Talk to us a little bit about how the importance. You have been a coach for all these different years. You've coached everywhere from VCU, Oklahoma, now Duke, Old Dominion, and now at Pittsburgh. And so you've seen and recruited a lot of kids. Talk to us about the influence of your father, and especially of a Black athlete per se. And talk to us a little bit about how your dad influenced you and what you see when you recruit a kid that doesn't have a father.
Yeah. There's been no greater influence in my life than my dad. Like you mentioned, I was very fortunate throughout my first 43 years on this earth that the person that I admired the most, wanted to be like, my hero, I could touch him, I could hug him, I could pick up the phone and call him. Later on in life, you could text him. I had that person in my life. So I didn't have to just look to an athlete or an actor or somebody else. And certainly I had those that I loved, but the person that I admired the most and wanted to be like the most was my father. And, a big reason why I am today, who I am and what I do, is because of him. I look at my career. It's so funny. I was, doing something on Twitter the other day, and someone posted this video of these kids, these young people, I should say, and it was the first time they had ever heard the Phil Collins song "In the Air Tonight," and they were showing their reaction. It was really funny, really cool, and really funny.
I saw that. Yeah.
And I commented on it, and I just said, this was my dad's song. And one of my dad's former players that played for him in Old Dominion, he wrote something about, I remember the first time I heard it, Coach won his first, CAA championship and put the date down, and he played this for us. And my dad would play that song for a big game. He'd get the guys in the locker room, he'd turn the lights off, and he'd push play. And for a lot of those guys, it was their first time hearing it. And then someone else chimed in. And so, Evie, I'm looking at these things on social media, and the first one, they had the date, I think it was March 3rd, 1995. We helped Coach win his first CAA championship. He played this. And someone else posted, I was with him March 6th, 1997, for his second CAA championship. And I'm looking at this, and, I've already known it, but my dad took over a Division II program at a historically Black university, Fayetteville State University. And they were 0-something before he got there. I think his first year, they didn't win a conference game. And by his last year, they were in the Division II NCAA tournament. Then he goes to North Carolina A&T. They're in the NCAA tournament. Goes to Old Dominion. They win the CAA. They're in the NCAA tournament. His second year there, they were good. I think they lost in the finals of the conference tournament. And then his third year, they're in the NCAA tournament. And I look at that, and I look at my first few years as a coach, and I had success, but not anywhere close to him. But I was able to move. I was able to go from VCU to the University of Oklahoma. I was able to do that because of my dad, because of what he did, because of what Coach Thompson and Coach Chaney and all these guys did before me. And so his influence on me, man, his impact on me is so unbelievable. After his death, I knew it, but after his death, you start hearing from former players, you start hearing, from guys that he coached and guys that he was around, the impact that, he had on them. How I am as a husband, how I am as a father, how I am as a coach, as a mentor to these young people. is a direct reflection of my dad. And I find myself now saying things that he always said. My brother and my mom will tell me, I'll make some expressions on the sidelines, or I'll do stuff where it looks just like him. And for me, there's no greater compliment than that, because it's the person I've always wanted to be like.
When you see young men, that's awesome, man. It's awesome. I lost my father when I was 6 years of age. So, not growing up with your father has so much, impact on your life, and you have to try to find other people, coaches. And sometimes, coaches, I've had some white coaches that I played for who have been good people, and they've been father figure-ish, but it's something about having someone who looks like you and has had to grind like you be there to give you some things that they can't ever give you because they didn't grow up in the struggle. And as like, I know as great a man as Coach K was to you, and a type of, in the special individual to you, he, like you said, it's great to hear how you talk about he wasn't Jeff Capel the second, as great as that. Let me ask you this though: when you go and recruit kids now, when they don't have the father, what are some of the challenges that you see, in that, like as far as, getting them to change their mindset when they come in?
Yeah, it's interesting because sometimes one of the things you see is how do they react when a male gets on them? It's so funny, man. It's so interesting. I shouldn't say funny. It's interesting. When I was at Oklahoma, it was my 4th year there, and it was my 8th year as a head coach overall. And it was the first time I ever had a losing season. And we were talented. It was young talent, but it was talent. And I remember earlier that year, we were in practice and we had some NBA scouts there. We had some really, really talented young guys on that team. And one of the scouts that was there is a very, very good friend of mine. And he had been scouting for a while. He was a little bit older than me, had been around for a while. And we went to eat afterwards, and we're just sitting talking and stuff like that. And he says to me, look, I'm going to give you a piece of advice. A couple of these kids that you have, like, I know them. I really know them. I know their background. That's my job to know. And he was like, a little bit of piece of advice. If you can, you should see somewhere on your somewhere if you could hire like an older Black woman. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he was like, because those kids have never been yelled at by a male. Their fathers weren't around. And, I watch you in practice, you get on them in a good way out of love, but they don't understand that because no male has ever done that. A coach hadn't done it because, a lot of times, and this, some coaches are afraid to get on kids, especially a really good player, because they don't want them to leave. They're afraid they may leave. And so sometimes you may have that. Sometimes they may not be as trusting. But usually what I find in those situations, EB, is that their moms are so strong. They are so amazing. Coach K used to always say, when I went back there and worked, he used to always talk to our team like, if you could have passion for something, or if you could love something, or be as tough as a mother. And he always said there's nothing tougher and nothing that has the ability to love like a mother. And he would always reference his mother and all the things that she did and the sacrifices, and she was always there. And so normally, man, in those situations, if it is a single, parent and a single mother, you normally find, man, that mom is incredibly strong. She's done an amazing job because most of these kids are good kids. They have manners. But sometimes there's a trust element there. That's the thing that you have to overcome at times.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Ben. That trust, that's something. Talk to us a little bit about, Jeff, with that's been going on in this world. We can't dismiss this, or, the racial tensions that's going on now. It has been, starting probably, you can say, with the George Floyd deal, where it's just been like just magnified basically because, and part of it is because the world stopped. I know I was talking to, I think Tommy Hammer, and he talked about, or somebody else had talked about, I don't know if it was Tommy, it might have been Tommy, or it was somebody else that talked about on the podcast, that talked about how even COVID-19 was kind of almost like a godsend. It wasn't Tommy, it was somebody else, but in a godsend in the way of this, where it stopped, people gave you an opportunity to pause in life, hit the pause button, and see all of these things that's happening. Because, like, for example, if there was no COVID-19 or stoppage, the George Floyd murder would have happened. And although there would have been a segment of people talking about it, but because of the NCAA tournament and the NBA playoffs and everything else going on, baseball starting, we would have almost kind of brushed over it, and it wouldn't have had a time for it to just, stay there. And talk to us a little bit about that and how it's your impact is felt, how it's felt.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because Tommy Amaker, we were on a call. We had a thing with former Duke players, and Tommy spoke, and I think you're gonna have him on, and he's one of my favorite people in the world, and he's so smart, and so I'm stealing this from him, but he talked about what this has done, this pandemic. If you think about it, and he said, it's not a surprise that this is happening in 2020. I don't think it's a coincidence, because you look at 2020 gives you clear and perfect vision. And with what you just said, everything is stopped. We're able to have clear and perfect vision to the injustice, to all the things that have been happening, and that Black people, minorities, women have been fighting for years. I think people are starting to see it. They can see it now. And that's because of the 2020 vision. And it's been difficult. It's been really, really difficult, especially, for me, first of all, as a man, seeing these things happen. To me, it was a buildup. Obviously, I know my history. I was a history major. My grandfather helped integrate North Carolina, so I know all of that. But what I'm talking about specifically right now, you had Ahmaud Arbery that happened in Georgia. That one scared the hell out of me, man, just because you think about it, our guys were at home. It's the pandemic. How are they working out? They're out running. They're out jogging. They're out doing stuff outside. And you see this young Black guy that's just out jogging, and he gets killed. And then you had the thing up in New York with the lady Amy Cooper and the guy who's bird watching, and that whole incident. And you see the fear and you see all of that. And then the George Floyd thing, where you actually saw it was a public lynching. That's exactly what it was. We watched a murder, 8 minutes and 46 seconds. And I think that opened up everyone's eyes. And so for me, there were so many emotions, anger, fear, shock, all of those things. And then also as a father, as a father of 3 young kids, 2 girls, 13 and 11, and then a 7-year-old little boy, fear for them. We live right in the city. There are times, EV, where, there's a Starbucks about 3 blocks from us where my girls will just walk to Starbucks. And it's, this could happen to them. Like, this could be them, and things like that. Like, when will my son, who's 7, go from that cute boy, cute little boy, to this dangerous threat? And then thinking about my players, and thinking about them and their safety. And so that was after my family, getting with them and making sure, then right away going to my players and listening to them. And EV, it was anger, shock, disbelief. It was so many rage. There were so many emotions. And so trying to provide a safe spot, safe place for them to talk. And then it was difficult because you can't get to them. You can't put your arm around them. You can't take them and grab something to eat and talk about, or have them over at my house and have these conversations face to face. You're doing it over a screen, like you and I are doing it right now. Unfortunately, I guess, these are conversations that we have had to have with our kids for a while. When I say our kids, I'm talking about my players. These are conversations in the Black community that we have had to have. We've had to be aware. We've had to be alert because these things have been going on for a really, really long time. And so we didn't just start talking about this with our players after those 3 incidents that I just mentioned. These are conversations that we have been having for a while, talking to them when they first get here as freshmen about what to do when you're stopped. I'm sure their parents had talked to them, but we wanted to have these conversations. What to do if you're stopped by a cop, how to act, how to react. You know, the main thing is just get home safely, you know, and things like that. And, you know, I remember when I was little, I don't remember the exact age, but I remember when I was little, we were living, my dad was a high school coach. I was probably, I was between 2nd and 5th grade. And I remember we used to play outside all the time, and we'd play in the street, and you make up games and things like that. And it was a Black neighborhood. And I'll never forget this. We were outside playing one day, and all of our parents come out and like, you guys got to come inside right now. You got to come inside. And we're upset, we're angry and confused and things like that. And I think most of the kids came inside my house, and it's because the Klan was getting ready to march. And they were going to be probably coming through, you know, like right where we were. And so the fear immediately that we felt, the fear that our parents felt for us, and those are things that not a lot of people have to experience. And so it's been really interesting. You know, I'm glad that these student athletes and young people have not been afraid to speak out. It's interesting because a lot of the things that we talk about, you know, the younger generation, they're entitled, they're addicted to social media, things that we don't understand. I think it benefits all of us in this time because this young generation, man, they aren't afraid. They aren't afraid to speak out. They actually believe they can change, and they understand the weapons that they have, not just their voice, but their savviness on social media, all those different platforms to make change happen. And so I'm really proud of them. And I do think this younger generation is the generation that's going to really help change a lot of stuff in this country.
You're exactly right, man. Social media has changed the game. And I think that I personally believe, you know, a lot of this stuff is a distraction. From COVID-19, the racial tensions, I think is planned. I think, you know, and I'm trying not to be a conspiracy theorist, but there's something going on behind the scenes that for some reason that we just don't absolutely know. But I don't know if the powers that be was expecting the young people. They awakened what I would say a sleeping giant. Because most young people are not, you know, as I was sharing with Tommy Amaker and sharing with some other people, and you're right, Tommy was just phenomenal. Last week he talked about the 2020 vision. I knew where you're going with that. That he was just his thought process on it was just awesome. But one of the things that I remember as a kid, and you probably grew up in this too. When I played, it was a mindset of man, when I played against a white guy, I just felt like I was going to destroy him. I mean, he can't, you know, white guy can't guard me. I mean, that's just how we were taught because we were brought up in that generation. And so today's kids don't really think like that per se. They just like, you know, they really are almost everybody kind of together. And so when you begin things to enlighten them to say, no, they don't look at you. There's some people on this earth that don't look at you as evil.
Yes.
You know, it's kind of like, wait a minute, they don't. And so then that upsets them. And so now they're willing to, you know, like almost die for this thing. And so it's a, you know, it's definitely a trying time, and we do have to educate properly. I know for me, my faith has got me through this because, you know, my faith in God and how I believe in the scriptures. And I'm just trying not to look at it. I'm not trying to take it personal in the sense of the white man is my enemy. He's not my enemy. You know, from a biblical standpoint, and I know this is not a biblical show, but I just have to go there for a second. For me, Satan is my enemy. So I try to focus in on that so I don't get upset, because it can be upsetting where I can flip into a whole nother geek where I can be just mad at every
Yeah.
white person. And I'm not going to, I just
Yeah.
refuse to do that. And so that's kind of the take I have.
Yeah. And that's a, the thing that we need, and I've talked to our guys about this, and, it's unfortunate that we certainly don't have great, I don't even think we have good leadership in our country right now. And so I think that's why there's this huge divide. I think that there are people and factions in this country that want to divide. When you think about building a team, and when I took over this program, I knew that it was a rebuild. This was a very proud program, but I knew it was a rebuild. You starting this podcast, any person that's building a company or whatever, any successful thing, team, business, corporation, whatever, marriage, relationship, you understand the fundamental thing is that you need each other. That's what it comes, especially in team. Like you really, the really good teams get that. Like we're watching the playoffs right now, and you're like the really good teams, as great as LeBron is, or Giannis is, or Harden is, they need those other guys. You always hear Shaq refer to it as the others and how important they are. We are fighting right now, I think, and we've been fighting it for a while, Black people, but we are fighting the biggest fight that I think maybe has ever existed on this earth, which is racism. And in order to defeat it, we need each other. And we need the people that understand, that really and truly love and respect everyone, that believe in what this country was founded on, like that truly believe in it, that justice for all, liberty for all, and things like that. You need those people being together. And so I agree with you 100%, man. Like whether you're Black, white, Latina, whatever it is, if you have love in your heart for all, you believe in equality for all, and all those things for all people, then I rock with you 100%. If you don't, I really don't want anything to do with you, and you are what we're trying to take out.
Right. Listen, man, that's awesome, man. I love the perspective. I can just tell you Duke guys, y'all got, you know what? Y'all just a little bit more intelligent than the rest of us, man.
No, we're not.
Y'all,
No, we're not.
Tommy,
Not at all.
Jeff Capel, Kenny Blakeney. I've had Blakeney on here. So, I mean, matter of fact, I should have had a thing that said, before you start, Jeff, we the 10-letter words we can't have. I had to tell Blakeney that, because Blakeney wants to give us these like big time words and of different things. But let's shift into a thing I'm calling that we call the What's Your Geek segment. And it's the What's Your Geek segment is brought to you by Fahrenheit Graphics and Sweet Mary K Photography. And what that is talk to us a little bit about, Jeff, your family, your wife, your children, go through, just your time playing in high school. I mean, a little bit, you won a state championship, just tell us some things that the normal people may not know about Jeff Capel.
Yeah, well, I'm married to an amazing woman. She's from North Carolina. We were in school together. She was a year younger than me. We actually we spoke in college, but we never really had a conversation. But we started dating after I graduated in her senior year at Duke, and we've really been together since 1998. This past Sunday, on August 9th, we celebrated our 17th year anniversary. We have 3 amazing kids, 2 girls, 13 and 11, and a 7-year-old little boy, that are the biggest blessings for us and to us. And so that's, my family right there. I grew up in North Carolina. We moved a lot when I was younger with my dad's career. So I was born in Fayetteville, North Carolina. That's home to me. But we moved from there. I always do it, by grade. So we lived there to the end of the first grade. And then we moved. I was in Southern Pines, North Carolina from second to fifth grade. Then we moved to Winston-Salem, North Carolina. My dad became a college assistant at Wake Forest University. We were there from sixth to eighth grade. And then we moved back to Fayetteville. My dad became a head coach at a historically Black university, Fayetteville State University. We were there from ninth grade until I graduated high school. And then I went to Duke. My dad moved to to Greensboro, my parents. My dad was at A&T for a year. And so, high school was amazing for me. I played for a great coach, not a good coach, a great coach. And one of the four men that had the most influence on me, my high school coach, Ron Miller, he was one of those men. He was a guy that was transplanted from Queens, New York, to Hope Mills when he was younger, Hope Mills, North Carolina, and was the high school coach there. And we had a great 3 years. Back when I was in high school there, you didn't start high school in 10th grade. And so we had a great 3 years, which culminated in winning the state championship my senior year. I think we were 37-1 or 35-1 or something like that. I remember the game we lost. It was the championship of the Holiday Classic, the Christmas tournament. And then, that led me to Duke. I was able to, become a pretty good player in high school. And I had an opportunity. I knew I wanted to play in the ACC growing up in North Carolina. It's ACC country if you have an opportunity. Evie, at the beginning of my junior year of high school, I narrowed my list to 4. And it was NC State, Virginia, Duke, and North Carolina. It probably was always Duke and Carolina. But one of my dad's closest friends was an assistant at Virginia. And then, obviously, had a lot of respect for NC State's program. I grew up a Carolina fan. I don't know how many people know that, but I was a Carolina fan growing up. I used to tell my parents when I was younger, when I get older, I want to play for Coach Smith. And they were one of, I think them and NC State were the first ACC schools to offer me. And then Duke offered me when I was in 10th grade. It was actually right around my birthday in February. And at the end of my 10th grade year, I went up to Duke for an unofficial visit. And I spent, a few hours up there. And when we were leaving, when we were driving home, it was me, my dad, and my brother. I think my high school coach maybe was with us too. And we were driving back. I was kind of quiet. And that was rare for me around my family. And after about 15 minutes, my dad was like, what's wrong with you? Like, you're quiet. What's going on? And I said, that's the guy I want to play for. And I had spent, about an hour just sitting talking to Coach K. And Tommy Amaker was really influential in that. And so I committed to Duke at the end of my junior year, in April of my junior year. And, never imagined that the guy that I chose to play for, to be my assistant, to be my head coach, at 17 years old, I'm 45 now, would be a really close friend. And so that relationship, one of the things I thought was very interesting, I mentioned my grandfather earlier. This is my dad's father, who's one of the smartest people I've ever met. He's in the North Carolina Business Hall of Fame, owned his own business, amazing story about it, but he helped integrate North Carolina. He originally went to Hampton Institute, which is Hampton University. He had to leave. His father died, and he had to go back and take care of his family. I didn't know this until I graduated from Duke. After my graduation, we were at a thing, and my grandfather got up to speak. And he got emotional. And it was the first time I had ever seen him emotional. And he said when he was younger, he had dreams of going to Duke because of the education and things like that. And he couldn't even apply because he was Black. And you look at all these years later, his first grandson and his namesake, I'm the third, my grandfather, a senior, was graduating Duke University. You know, I had aspirations like all these young people now. I wanted to be a pro. I had an injury and an illness that ended my career probably at about 24 years old, which is what led me to coaching. It's funny, man, when I was growing up and when I was playing, I never thought I wanted to be a coach. It was something I did not want to do. And then I missed a year of playing. I got really, really sick and was touch and go there for a minute. Was in the hospital for a while. And it was during that time, my dad was the head coach at Old Dominion. And I spent a lot of time with him at his practices. And I think that's when I caught the bug of trying, you know, of wanting to coach. And I tried to play one more year after that, but it didn't work. And I was fortunate, man. I had a dad that was a head coach. That's how I got into the profession. I was my dad's assistant at Old Dominion. You know, he got fired. And so that leaves me looking for a job. I'm at the Final Four, passing out resumes. I'm at the Boo Williams tournament. Coaches could go to that then, passing out resumes, trying to do that. And I got fortunate, you know, I got a chance to latch on as an assistant with Mac McCarthy at VCU. And then I became the head coach there after that year. And so my journey, man, into coaching was so different, was so different than anyone else. And you think about it, I'm 27 years old. I'm the head coach there. At 31 years old, I'm at a Power 5 conference at a high major at the University of Oklahoma. And so I experienced, man, these highs. In my, you know, third year at OU, we're in the Elite Eight. I think we're one of the best teams in the country. I got a chance to coach one of the best, you know, recruit and coach one of the best college players ever in Blake Griffin. And then all of a sudden it came crumbling down. So as fast as it happened, it went down faster than that. And then I'm fired at OU. And it was humbling. It was really, really humbling. And I realized what you don't know. And I realized the business side of it. It's as difficult as it was the right thing for them and for me. And I didn't realize it at the time. And again, I was fortunate that I was able to recover at my alma mater. You know, coach called and I need you to come back. And I went there and I was able to learn. I thought those 7 years, as much as I'd learned in the 9 years being a head coach, those 7 years going back there and being around that program, being around him, having a chance that open some doors. I got a chance to work with USA Basketball on the national team. And so I learned so much that I think has prepared me for this opportunity that I have right now.
That's awesome. You know, a lot of times, you know, sometimes God allows us to be humble for our next level of greatness. And there's no question in my mind that I remember those times, you know, at Oklahoma, and I watched you from afar, and I thought, man, this is powerful that a young black coach has an opportunity to do as well as you do, as you were doing, and we were rooting for you, because it's rare that there's a lot of white coaches who get opportunities at 27, but usually, typically, a black coach doesn't get a head coaching job to really around in their late 30s at best, you know, probably early 40s. So for you to get one at 27 was a rarity, no doubt about it. And so it was a major blessing. You can obviously, God had to have his hand on, you know, your life for that to happen, you know. So that was powerful. And so we needed you to succeed, and you did. And then the good thing is, like you said, you were able to go back and learn from your experiences and take us to where you are right now, to the University of Pittsburgh. Talk to us a little bit about, as we get ready to wrap up and close, about Pittsburgh, the challenges, the rebuild. You know, obviously, you know, just 4 or 5 years ago, or 3 or 4 years ago, Jamie Dixon had the program, you know, at a pretty good level, and then it dropped off, and, you know, and it just seemed like it just dropped way off, and now you're bringing it back, you know, you know, brought some life into it. And so talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, you know, it's I knew a lot about the program from afar as a fan of college basketball. And, you know, when I really stopped playing and got into coaching, that was around the time that Ben Howland was here. And Ben was the guy that really turned this thing around. And so obviously Pitt was a very good program in the before that. But when the original Big East was formed in the 79-80 season, they were one of the powers, with Charles Smith and Jerome Lane and all those guys back then. And then it dipped a little bit in the 90s. But then when Ben got here and really started, to rebuild this thing, and then Jamie was his assistant and took over after him, there was a period, EV, where this program was as good as any program in the country. When you go from about 2002 really to about 2015, it was as consistent as any program in the country. They just didn't make a Final Four or win a national championship, but there were multiple Big East championships, multiple number one seeds in the NCAA tournament, in the tournament just about every year. And so there was a consistency of excellence. The other thing, again, as a fan, you're watching these games, you're reading these publications, they put up the toughest places to play, and it was the Peterson Event Center. It was the Pete, the best home court, the Pete, the best home court winning streak. The University of Pittsburgh, the Pete is where we play. The best student section, the Oakland Zoo. And so as a fan, I knew all of this stuff. And then Pitt made the decision to join the ACC. And I think when that happened, I think there were a lot of people here that didn't like it. Their thing was the Big East. And I think Jamie maybe grew, started thinking like, it's time for me to go. It's time for me to start looking at other things. And then he left, and Kevin Stallings came in. Who I think Kevin's a good coach. He's always been nice to me, but it wasn't the right fit for Pitt or for Kevin. And so you had that. Also, during Jamie's last 2 years and the 2 years that Kevin was here, there were also 3 athletic directors at Pitt. And so when you think about it, man, you leave a conference and you join a new conference. So that means who you're playing, these traditions that you've had since the 80s, the early 80s, all this time, all of it's different. The style of play is different, the Big East and the ACC. And then all the turnover with the athletic directors, the 3 athletic directors in 4 years. And so I knew it was a rebuild. Here are the things that I liked. I knew the history. And so I knew that it had been done here. And so for me, okay, well, we can do it. That's what, there was a tradition. There's a lot of pride in this program. Here's some things that I didn't know. I didn't know how good of a school it was until I started doing my research when they came after me. It's one of the top 25 public universities in the country. It's one of the top research universities, and we have one of the top medical centers. We're also a university with a lot of money, which gives a lot of resources. And so those are the things that excited me. The other thing that excited me, EV, is that it was down. That was something. And so it gives me and us, my staff, it gives us an opportunity to come in and to build it how I want to build it. That's where I think I'm better than I was when I got to OU or these other places. If you look at my previous 2 times as a head coach at VCU, and we had to change that one. I was really proud of my time there because we changed the culture. Now, I was left some really good players. The guy that I worked for, Coach Mack, he left me some really good players, and we were able to build on it. But year 2, we flipped it. When I went to OU, I replaced a really, really good coach in Kelvin Sampson and a good friend. And I was left a culture of toughness, rebounding, defense, competitiveness. Those kids were going to work. They were going to be physical, but we had to improve the talent. Well, you do that when you get Blake Griffin in year 2. And so we had flipped it in year 2 there. This one I knew was going to take a little bit longer, but I feel like I'm more equipped and understand that a little bit more now. And having gone through failure, I get that. And so I'm excited. I'm really excited. I'm hopeful we can have a season this year because I think we have a chance to be pretty good. This will be the most talented team we have. We have depth at every position. We have 6 new guys, 7 if you count a kid that sat out last year that really played well for us. and our workouts have been going really well. They have great attitudes. And so I think we have a chance to make a jump this year, and I'm excited about the opportunity.
Well, as we get ready to close, I have to ask you the same thing that I asked everyone else. I mean, with you said all of that, you led me right into my last question. I've seen over the last two, both years, there's been an increase in wins each year that you've been there. You were, 500 last year total. Is this the year? I mean, in your third year, are we going dancing at Pittsburgh this year?
We're hopeful. I thought last year, once we got to the middle of the conference, EV, we had a chance. We were sitting in a really good spot, but we just didn't know how to finish. We have to learn how to win. And if you look, we lost a lot of close games last year. And so I think with being a year older, we'll have a couple of juniors and seniors, 3 juniors and seniors for us this year that have been with us now. This will be year 3, and they've been good players. And then we have some talented younger guys. And so we think we have a shot, man. But again, I'm hopeful that we do get a shot to earn the right to be worthy of that.
That's awesome. Well, Coach, I appreciate you, man, taking the time here in your busy schedule, because I know a lot's going on. Even though it's a time of, uncertainty, you still have a lot going on. And so we value your time. And as we want you here to, as we close here, to have the last word. If there's anything that you want to leave with us, feel free as we get ready to close this segment of our podcast.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I appreciate you having me on. It's been an honor to talk to you. It's been fun to kind of reminisce a little bit. The thing that I'm hopeful for all the listeners and all the people that watch is just remember, like, we need each other. We are going through, we are living history right now, and we are going through something that's never happened in our country and in the sports world. And we have to understand that we need each other, and we need to follow the guidance of the doctors and the scientists as it pertains to COVID-19. This is not a political thing. This is about the health and safety and welfare of the people in our country. And so we need to listen to the experts, not to the politicians and not to the media. And then we need to follow instructions. We need to be good teammates right now. And all of us want to play. On the college level, we all want to play, but the thing that's most important is the safety of our young people. And so listen, be disciplined, and let's work together and beat, all the social things that are going on, and also to beat this pandemic.
There you have it, man. We need to turn that into a commercial right there. We need to be great teammates. Yep. Thank you again, Jeff, man. Appreciate
it.
Man.
Geeker, the Geeker, the Geeker. His name's the Geeker, the Geeker, the Geeker. His name's the Geeker, the Geeker, the Geeker. His name's the Geeker, the Geeker, the Geeker.